Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe I meant to sing to that. Welcome to the Great Lakes Centre this evening. My name is Bruce Dunlop. I'm the current president of Lake Taupō Rotary, and I thank you all for coming and thank the candidates for making themselves available for this evening. We've received apologies from David Freeman, Yvonne Westerman and Rahapa Ramika. I'd like to introduce now Bob Jollins as moderator for the evening. He is also from Lake Taupō Rotary, and we look forward to an interesting evening.
Thank you very much, President Bruce. I'd like to acknowledge Mayor David Taravis and of course all the candidates for the Mayoralty, for the Taupō District Council, and also I'd like to acknowledge our timekeepers from Toastmasters who will be keeping us in order tonight so that we can get through the evening. And there are a lot of people, I understand, watching online, and I welcome you to our evening hearing from the councillors, nominees. It's a privilege really for me tonight to be your moderator, and I welcome all those who have come out tonight in this awful weather, especially as it's a pretty important time for us all here in the district to learn a little bit more about those who are standing for election. I ask that each of you respect the opinions expressed tonight. It's one of those nights when there will be opposing views, and I do ask that you respect those even if you do disagree with them. And I guess that's politics and democracy working in the best interests of our wonderful district, when debates in the council chamber will result in good decisions for the people of Taupō. The process tonight will be much more limited than you've probably seen before when we've held meetings like this, largely because of the numbers of candidates we've had. And therefore, we're going to restrict the questions to 2 rounds for the Mayoralty and 2 questions for the Mayoralty over 2 rounds, and each will have 1 question in the first round and the second question in the second round, and all candidates will answer the same question. The candidates for the council will have the same in both rounds. Their answers are going to be limited, as they've always been in the last 3 meetings that Rotary has held, where they will be limited to 1.25 minutes each. As in the past, as I said, the 2 rounds will be followed by the written questions submitted by email from the public, or some of you may have dropped them off at the door. Unfortunately, several of the submitters with questions have in fact asked for each and every candidate to answer the question. To answer the questions in the timing that we've allowed will take 30 minutes, so we'll be here till tomorrow. And so we've unfortunately had to limit them to just answering the 1 question. The questions are going to be presented by 2 Rotarians, Paul Gardner and Catherine Uvagen. And unless the respondents who have posed the questions has nominated a candidate, the candidates' names will be pulled out of a bucket to answer the question that the respondent is asking. We're hoping to conclude the evening by 9:30 and hope that it will be time for everyone to mix and mingle with the candidates out in the foyer before we have to vacate the premises by 10 o'clock. Now, I just need to run over the health and safety, and firstly I'd like everyone to make sure that their phones are turned to silent or turned off so that they don't disrupt the evening. The restrooms are in the main foyer, out through the door there. In the event of an emergency, an alarm will be heard. Please exit through the nearest marked exit located on either side of the theatre auditorium or via the main lounge area. Our staff are trained in emergency evacuation procedures and will be available to assist you if required. Should you require first aid, our staff are trained in first aid and can assist you until an ambulance, if required, arrives. The Great Lakes Centre emergency assemble point is located on the grassed area outside the main doors. If you have any further questions, please ask our staff. Now, please, we're going to listen from the candidates, and the process will be that each one will have a microphone and stand to present themselves to you and introduce themselves. They have 1.5 minutes each to present themselves and their message to you, and we have the timers down here who will give them the green light at 1 minute. Then at 1 minute 15 seconds they'll give them a orange light, and then when the red light comes on, that means stop, and the bell will also be rung. Also, I should alert the candidates too that once the bell has gone, the mic will stop working. I'm told by my predecessor, who ran this 3 times, in all his time he only ever had one run over time, and that stopped very quickly. Okay, I'd like to start with the mayoral candidates and ask them to start with David Tuavis to introduce himself. So over to you, David.
Good evening. Thank you, Bob, for your introduction. I feel like I could be John Grinnell singing "Welcome to Our World" up here, didn't I? But hey, lovely to be here, and thank you to the Lake Taupō Rotary, my wonderful hostess, Mary Lockwood. Sorry, Mary Lockwood, and all of the other wonderful candidates here. What a lineup. I don't think I can remember, Bob, a lineup like this, but it's wonderful. Sorry, I probably used a minute up. But I'll get into it. It's been an absolute honour and an absolute privilege to have been your mayor for the last 9 years. With your support, I would very much like to be elected for another 3 years. The district is going incredibly well. With a AA+ credit rating, we've won the New Zealand's most beautiful large town twice, but we still have work to do. I would like to see the completion of the Taupō Airport, which is going very well, and Mayoral House on time and on budget. Investment in Turangi, Kinloch, Mangakino is a must, and we must keep all our sporting facilities up to scratch. Farming and forestry will continue to be supported through our rural committee. Elderly and seniors, you must feel safe in our community and in your homes. Business, retail and industrial must get our full attention. I will be strongly opposed to the Three Waters as it stands. If you want calm, clear, consistent leadership, please, I ask to vote for me, always the Mayor for all. Thank you. And the ding goes.
Can I start when I'm ready?
Go for you.
Good evening, everyone. I am now a Taupoian of 8 years. I was born in the South Island, the daughter of a coal miner, had a very tough life, and that gives you a lot of skills, and I certainly wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. As you know, I've been the Deputy Mayor for the last 3 years and on Council for 6. I'm also a business coach. Leadership is my skill and my passion. It's almost my obsession. I've been a leader since my early 20s and the Chief Executive for several organisations. I've owned a company that's taught leadership and management, and also have a great deal of governance experience as both a board member and a chair. No leader can do it alone. You need your team. You've got to build your team, nurture your team, inspire your team and support them. But I believe that the Mayor is the leader of the district, whether it's council business or not, and needs to lead the issues to get the right outcomes for this district. Local government is facing a lot of issues. Three Waters is one of the biggest threats we have had in a very long time. To me, it's confiscation, and we should have learned about confiscation a long, long time ago. I'm strong, I'm articulate, and I'm driven. I do my homework, I'm not afraid to fight for what's right, and I have a national voice that I want to use for the Taupō district that I love. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Politicians, like diapers, should be changed regularly, and for the same reason. I'm Sean Wakelin, and I'm very proud to be standing this year for your Mayor. It's something that I've grown up in a family who's had a history of a commitment to the community, and I've seen what that's done in the sense of boards, committees, helping and assisting and going above and beyond. So here I am offering myself up to serve on the Taupō, for the Taupō Ward as your Mayor and as your leader, deemed, I guess, although it's a term that's taken quite heavily. So I'm an independent auctioneer, I'm a negotiator, a businessman, predominantly having worked in real estate, and I've also had hospitality businesses here in Taupō, and I know what it's like to have a small business. And I know that a lot of our companies at the moment, a lot of our small and medium enterprises are hurting. And what we've got is we've got people going to bed at night worrying about the next day, about what they're going to have to endure in the coming year with restrictions on business and trade that we've had through our COVID periods. We've got people going to sleep wondering if they're going to have customers the next day, if the staff are going to turn up. Heck, some even wonder if they've got staff and if they have to close 2 days a week just to keep their businesses running at the moment. So this is what's going through the mind of our main employers, of our small and medium enterprises. They're not lying in bed awake at night wondering what we should do with 4.3 million on Owen Delaney Park. They're not working out where the next traffic light goes. These are basic and honest commitments and problems that we face at the moment in Taupō, and indeed nationwide, and are things that I follow and feel strongly about. Now, you can't operate a business as usual when business isn't usual, so we need to look at changing the way that we do business. And now instead of making me the third person now, it's been done. It's not me, I'll finish off. A vote for Sean's, a vote for change. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Kia ora, good evening everyone. I'd like to thank you all and acknowledge my colleagues, the candidates. My name is Aladdin. I am a corrections officer, a former business owner, and I've been a local in this beautiful town for the last 13 years. In the last local government election in 2019, only under 53% of the eligible voters in Taupō casted their votes. That means that nearly 50% of our town are not even interested in what we're doing here today. They're not interested in council and who's in council and who's not. That's a big problem. Power comes from people, and I say this also to my colleagues. Power comes from the people. People will support you, and then if people support you, you will have the power to change and the power to lead. People will support you if they have a strong belief that you represent their thoughts, hopes, and aspirations. I can promise you two things tonight. One of them is, I am not going to have answers for every question you have. And the other promise is, if elected as councillor, I will be making mistakes. But with an open conversation with you and proper feedback, these will be mistakes to learn from and never to happen again. Let me be your voice. Thank you.
Jane Arnott. I'm here to contribute. To do that, I need to win not just your vote, but your trust. There is no silver bullet to winning trust. But I bring experience in marketing and communications across engineering and health. As Chief Executive across the wood processing and forestry sectors, and as Executive Director of a nationwide charity, alongside Tuhumu Tuhuhu and former National MP Dennis Marshall, I held responsibility for multi-million-dollar budgets and achieving ambitious fundraising targets. I currently provide professional ethics workshops as part of the governance programs for professional bodies such as Engineering New Zealand and Financial Advice New Zealand. I have business, ethics and governance clients in the health and tourism sectors. I am an adjunct research fellow in ethical leadership and a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit for my advocacy and service. In summary, I will bring common sense and critical thinking. I will ask tough questions, from legislative reviews to economic development, procurement and strategy. But I will also listen and take action. Recently, a retired and disabled resident needed support to play fetch in an empty park with a pet spaniel without getting a $300 fine. I listened, I championed, but I shouldn't have needed to go to the Human Rights Commission and to endure a 7-hour mediation for that man to enjoy that simple act with his spaniel in an empty park. Taupo, we can do better.
Hello, I'm Duncan Campbell, a self-employed civil engineer by trade and lived in Taupo since 2016. The reason I'm standing is because this place has grown on me and I plan on sticking around a while, and some of the things this council has got up to the past 3 years have been pretty disturbing to me and a few others I know. For example, the way Māori wards were just swept in with no consultation or regard to a resident petition. Similarly, the Taupo Town Transformation Project, bulldozer job as I sometimes call it, 5 Mile Bay occupation fiasco, I say aided and abetted by council staff action and local politician inaction. The list can go on. So I thought standing for council might be the best way to try and make a positive difference. But the most surprising thing to me is the way Taupo District Council is able to act with impunity in all sorts of things and just get away with it, really. Because I have worked in other councils before, in my specialised field being transportation. This is where it first caught my eye. Unnecessary expenditure and poor decision making and things like road safety and signal aspects of the latest town transformation project. So what really gets me is the lack of respect for residents that I've seen here, and I can say with some conviction that many of the things this council gets up to would just not be accepted in places like Auckland, where I come from. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Stanley Gray. I moved to Taupo more than 30 years ago to manage Lake Edge Resort. I kicked that one off. I moved away for a while, got a lot of business experience running multinational companies. I come back to Taupo because I love Taupo. I've got a passion for it. I've been walking the streets for many weeks, well, for about 3 weeks now, and talking to all the shop owners, businesses around here. They are concerned about youth. They're concerned about the safety of their businesses. They've got one lady's got a security guard on full time. This is the problem we've got in Taupo. I've got 2 businesses down here, so I know what the problems are, and some of them are associated with council as well, with the bureaucracy. And I'm not a politician, but I can tell you when I get in, if I get elected, I will make some changes, because it is unsatisfactory the way it's being run. Not everything. I mean, they are doing some good stuff, but there's a lot to do. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Craig Greenwood, and I've lived here for over 30 years now. My passion for my family, our community, and the fact that I've been a business owner all my life, employing locals, both young and old, drives me to run for council. I'm experienced in farming, sales, real estate, manufacturing, and waste removal. I turned a passion for race car driving into a business The tourism business has been operating here since 1991. I'm a qualified director, a member of New Zealand Directors of New Zealand Chamber of Commerce, and I bring leadership and practical decision making. I've learnt the importance of solid governance, and I'm known as someone who gets things done. I'm a family man. I have a mum, 86-year-old, still plays golf, a daughter, Caitlin, 12 going on 20, and my wife and I, we love our district and what it has to offer. I believe that everybody in our community should feel safe and to be proud to live here. Vote for me for council, and I will use a common sense approach to understand, analyse, resolve issues and challenges, and ensure council is held accountable. I would challenge any government moves to take away our rights to make our own decisions in our districts. Let's continue to grow in a sustainable way and keep enjoying the natural beauty of our town. Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Rod Hanson, not Veronica like it says on the board over there, so I don't quite know how that happened. Veronica's over here. So I come from a cross-section of a business background, farming background. I've had over 20 years in compliance and law enforcement. I've got experience in environment and conservation, and I've done a fair bit of work both nationally and internationally in the business sector. I shifted to Taupō a short 2 years ago. Always loved the place. I've got time and ability and passion, and I'm standing to represent the community. I've had previous council experience in other areas, and when I thought about joining council a little bit, and then some of the community started coming to me who know me and said, you need to stand for council, you're just what we need. So I'm standing to represent the community to the council. I believe councillors need to be listening to the community and carrying the message back, not taking the message forward, but carrying it back to council and hearing the people. So a vote for me will be a vote for yourselves. So I hope that goes well, Taupo. Thank you very much.
Kia ora koutou. Taupō has proudly been my home for 32 years. I am blessed with 6 children, now adults, and 23 grandchildren, all except 8 live here in the Taupō district. I am passionate to see a solutions-driven council that will provide hope that is practical, celebrate diversity, and drive reasonable change so this generation and the next can prosper and thrive. I have experience in community engagement, specialising in community-led development and facilitation, recently developing the age-friendly Taupō district plan, promoting the health and well-being of our older population. For 8 years, I have led the welfare function in emergency management, advocating resources for stronger community-wide resilience and preparedness. I have collaborated with a broad range of community groups, including grassroots and government. And as a former council employee of 10.5 years, I have some understanding of local government. I will ask the hard questions and I will do the hard work to see our social, environmental, cultural and economic well-being needs met. I value diversity, I value hope, solutions and change, and I have a heart after Taupō. A vote for me means you will be a part of my heart for Taupō. Kia ora.
Evening everyone, I'm Chris Mercer, born and bred local, been here most of my life. Like most school leavers, obviously had to travel out of town to go to uni and get that higher education and all that sort of stuff, but a few years ago I just sort of wanted to take charge of my own life, be my own boss. I was too difficult of an employee. So when I was looking at starting my own business, there was only one place in the country I wanted to do that, and that was Taupō. So 6 years ago I moved back here and started my business, work with clients and things nationwide, supporting small businesses and encouraging sort of business and community growth. So those are my areas of passion, and I want to advocate for Taupō to become the no-brainer choice for any small business owner or entrepreneur to come here and start their business and contribute to our local economy and our vibrant community and things, and make Taupō the most livable town in New Zealand. So.
Hi Taupō, I am James Nottage, a family man with 3 beautiful children, an amazing supportive wife, making Taupō our home. We own our business and our home here in Taupō, and we love to work hard so we can enjoy this place. Now, I am pro for a second bridge into our town, and I will work hard to make this a viable option. I am pro in making our residential roads safer for all, meaning if it's speed or maintenance, I will fight to make them safer. I am pro for the security of our town. This means keeping both people and property safe by lighting up alleyways and industrial roads and upgrades to our CCTV. Also, partnering with police and local community organisations to keep our community safe. Now, I've been going door to door these past 5 weeks, and there's one thing that keeps on coming up in every conversation: communication. And that is why I want to host monthly after-hour town hall meetings for all to attend. And then from those meetings, we can take notes. And then these notes can go back to the council table. So please let your voice be heard, Taupō, and vote James Nosage.
Good evening, Taupō. Thank you so much for attending either in person or by screen this evening. Look, I'm really passionate and proud of our district, and I'm committed to the safety of our communities, the protection of our natural environment, the revitalisation of our local economy post-COVID, and ensuring resilient infrastructure. I'm a team player with a strong, independent voice that wants all of our communities of interest to thrive. I have twins at Taupō College. I have a daughter at Waipahihi School. So I'm in touch with the future generation, which will be our next leaders in our community and businesses going forward. There is going to be at least 2 new Taupō Ward councillors, which is really, really exciting. With that, council also needs to have balance with experience, councillors who understand how the council machine works, who have constitutional knowledge to continue to look after the intergenerational well-being of all its residents and ratepayers. There has never been a more crucial time in local government for experience and knowledge of all the reforms that are being thrown at us from this Labour government. Did you cut me off? Vote Park.
Hello everybody, my name's Rachel Shepherd. I haven't done a lot of public speaking, so bear with me. In fact, the last time I spoke to a group this size, it was also to Taupō Rotary after completing the Ryla Youth Leadership Program. I've been a local for 42 years. I was raised here. I'm now raising my own family here. I've had a very varied career path, from hotel and event management to real estate, then law, and now I work in commercial leasing and property development. So that unique skill set has given me insight into the many facets of local government from both a business perspective as well as a community perspective. There are many reasons I decided to run for council. Not enough time to discuss them all here. Happy to speak afterwards though, so I'll just touch on the main points from my perspective anyway. We've had a tough couple of years, haven't we? And, you know, I've noticed a real disconnect within the fabric of our community. And I'd like to bridge a gap there and help local community groups who are working hard to bring community back together and hopefully form some new partnerships and some cohesion with local Taupō District Council. A connected community is a safe community after all. Another reason I've decided to run for council is the proposed legislative changes out of central government that will directly affect how and if decisions are made at a local government level. Some of those changes may yet prove to be of benefit, but already we've seen quite a few that will be of huge detriment to our town.
Hi, I'm Kevin Taylor. Taupo's been home for 30 years. I'm a first-term councillor seeking re-election. I previously served 44 years with the New Zealand Police, 3 years of change. RMA, 3 waters reforms, the future for local government, a global pandemic and its ongoing effects, and $50 million plus of government money in Taupo. One thing I said 3 years ago hasn't changed though, and that's no individual candidate, myself included if elected, can achieve anything on their own. We are a single voice at the table and the key is working together. I've done exactly that. My vision for Taupo remains the same, a safe, sustainable and inclusive district. My training and experience compels me to make informed, evidence-based decisions. I understand the law, I have upskilled. I've asked questions and challenged what is said or proposed, and I've done this across all council work streams. There is an avalanche of change bearing down on us. More than ever before, we need consistency and stability at the council table, or your voice will not be heard. With 3 years' experience understanding the machinery of council, I can effectively and intelligently advocate for Taupo. Thank you.
Kia ora katoa. I've spent 60 years in Taupo, 40 years as a self-employed businessman, the bulk of that in retailing, so I do understand some of the challenges around in the business for the business community. What do I stand for? It matters to me the protection of our environment and our lake to sustain growth, tourism and events. I'm a council rep on the Lake Taupo Protection Project Committee, the Greening Taupo, Kids Greening Taupo advocate, and I highly regard those relationships. It matters to me the economic prosperity, creation of jobs and the opportunities for the youth and the district as a whole. It matters to me the social equity, looking after our most vulnerable residents and making them safe. It matters to me the cultural diversity and the arts and culture. I'm council rep on the Friends of the Museum and Arts Gallery, which I value highly. My experience in council will hold me in good stead, particularly around the reforms, particularly around Three Waters reform. My vision, when looking at the wants and needs, is important currently. It's important to invest in the future for our future generations to thrive and to thrive. So,
We ready? Cool. Tēnā koutou, ko Daniel Young, toko ingoa. I was born and raised in Auckland. I've lived in Taupo for 18 years now. I've raised a family here. I have my wife and my 3 beautiful children. And my wife was born and raised in Turangi back in the heydays when they were building the tunnels many years ago. I'm a work broker and I help people get into sustainable employment. I've helped employers through the COVID transition and helped them with subsidies and helped them to keep people in employment. I'm all about employment. I'm also a leader in my church where I oversee and assist congregations in Taupo, Tokoroa, Murupara, Rotorua and Turangi. This is a voluntary position. I'm all about connecting with people and collaborating for a better outcome for all involved. I'm a junior basketball coach for Taupo Nuiatia College and I enjoy what I do. I'm putting my name forward as a councillor in the Taupo District Council to work positively with those on council and use all the skills and knowledge we have by being committed to finding solutions by collaborating for better outcomes. E ha te mea nui o te au. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing? It is people, it is people, it is people. People is what makes Taupo such a great place to live and work. I look forward to being your council representative should you vote for me. Connect, collaborate, commit. Thank you.
I'm David James Davies. My family's been here since 1880. I came back 4 years ago. We've had land there since 1880. 20% of this district is Maori land. That's why we have a Māori Ward. Understand? Or you don't understand, you're out of here. Seriously, why can't we have a Māori Ward? A third of the voters in Taupo are Maori on the Māori Ward list. We have 8,000 constituents. You have 24,000. There's only 2 of us standing. Okay, that's my start. I'm here for the people. How many in this room think a Māori Ward is good? Raise your hands. Thank you. David Travis welcomed the option of a Māori Ward in Taupo. Other districts fought against it. Thank you. We want equal votes. We want equal chance. You'll get democracy. You've had democracy. Excuse me? Enough. I'm an architect. I develop homes. I develop property. I help people. My platform is whenua for the whānau, okay? All of you out here who live on your own properties, you're fine. The Māori people don't have anywhere to live as much as they could have. We have land we can't use. My aim here is to be in council and get that land available for development. Council will benefit from it because we have a lot of land. Bye.
Tērā tōku rahi e tūmai rā ko Tongariro koimutuhanga. Te whare o te ahi te kāinga o te konga Tongariro whare haruru tēnei o te tuohu nei. He whai whakaaro ki a rāta kongaro i te tirohanga kanui ki a rāta ko wheturangi tia haere o ki atu. He tātai whetu ki te rangi, he tātai whakapapa ki te whenua e ngā ponga o tā hoa te mihi ana tēnā koutou katoa ko Karen Fletcher tōku ingoa. I wanted to share a statement which really resonates with me. It is, and I quote, "As a district, I think it's important to build a community where people unite and take action to create lasting change, celebrating the contributions of people of all backgrounds." As much as I'd like to take credit for that statement, or at least attribute it to my marketing team, aka my wife who's here tonight, I won't. But if the statement sounds familiar, it should, because it was paraphrased, but ultimately taken from the Taupō Rotary website. I love the line, creating lasting change. For me, lasting change is intergenerational. My family have worked the lands here in the Taupō district for generations. In fact, we're kaitiaki of the Turangi region long before the township was even created. Every subsequent decision, big or small, made by each of those generations have 100% impacted both myself and my opportunities. It's because of this I'm mindful of every decision I make and the impact it will have on every generation thereafter. Ko Karen Fletcher tōku ingoa, candidate for te Papamārearea, the Māori Ward for the Taupō District Council.
Kia ora koutou, mihi nui ki a koe, ko Danny Lachlan taku ingoa. Oh, stink being last. I see a lot of local business people, the odd council staff member, a few from the Taupō Wine Club and, of course, Taupō Tastemakers. Live behind the Kosi Club, Taupō Primary, Taupō Intermediate, Taupō Near-Tier College. Accountant for 20 years and then did a lot more work in our iwi space with our larger organisations. I served you for 6 years on the Lakes District Health Board. I then came off there and had a crack, for want of a better word, standing for this ward, Taupo-Kaingaroa, and got a reasonable amount of votes but was not successful. So since then I've been involved in a lot of more of a sort of environmental bent area in terms of looking after the Waikato River. I've been on the Tūwhara Toa Māori Trust Board for 16 years looking after Lake Taupo and all the other roles that we have there. But yeah, I'm on Taupō District Council's Risk and Assurance Committee. I think I'm on there because of my accounting skills, not necessarily my iwi skills. But yeah, I just believe you need very good representation around the board table. You need good governance, you need people with experience, and that's what I'm hoping to bring to the table. I know most of the councillors, everybody else, and I seem to get on well, and that's part of my role. So yes, I will have some strong views about looking after the environment and might criticise the council once in a while in terms of all these skills that we have.
Well, there we have it. And now you know the councillors and their views and who they are. And thank you all for expressing your views, who you are and what you stand for. We now move on to round one. And I must say that we're pretty close to the timing, so thank you for that as well. The questions will be displayed on the screens, and I'll read them out to you as well. And this round will allow each candidate to answer the same question and they have 1 1/4 minutes for the same process with the answers. The first set of questions will be for the 3 mayoral candidates, and they will answer the question with their views, and then followed by the candidates for the council. So if we could move on to David Tarotis with the first one, and there's the first question.
Thank you for the question, Bob. Yeah, what financial skills do I bring? I've been in business here since 1982, my family has, and we've been significant retailers in New Zealand over that amount of time. The AA+ credit rating is not easy to get. We're only one of 10 councils that's got that. They recognised that the financial skills at the council was there and was provided for. We must remain the community to be affordable. I understand that. I believe that. I go through every year all our operating costs. I can guarantee you, in my 9 years with the leadership role, our operating costs have not moved at all. If anything, they've gone down. So how many organisations can say that? Our revenue streams have gone up for sure, and we do operate a balanced budget. But we are very, very, I would believe that we are highly skilled to handle the district going forward. Thank you very much.
I have managed multi-million-dollar budgets. I'm a business coach. I've got to be able to give financial advice. As the board chair of the Peter Blake Marine Educational Centre in Auckland, the board and I took that organisation from the edge of bankruptcy to a thriving business. We don't control operational spending on a daily basis as mayor and councillors, and I know you think we do, but we don't. The CEO is our one employee, and we have to be very clear in his performance agreement about the outcomes we want on how the money is spent. All major spending is discussed around the board table, and we set the tone for spending in our frequent discussions regarding that. My colleagues will confirm that I often say and ask the question, would we spend this if it was our own money coming out of our own bank account? And I believe that's a really important question for public servants to ask on a regular basis, meaning, is this a sensible spend? No mayor or councillor have full control over affordability in this district. In fact, we have very little. We have a modicum of power. But we need to take every opportunity to grab anything that'll keep the rates and costs down. This year, for example, we have over double the accounting surplus, nearly $50 million, because we have been at the forefront of getting government money for projects so you don't have to pay for them. Thank you very much.
It's a tough crowd. Okay, I've mentioned before that I've run several businesses, I have, but I've never actually built a road and I've never had to manage multi-million-dollar budgets. So having said that, I don't have a special set of disciplines financially to bring to the council, but what I do have is a particular set of skills I've honed over a career, over a lifetime, and that's basic financial skills, and that's what we're at, folks. We need to go back to basics. Okay, what I can understand from council spending is that when I look at savings from preventing unnecessary spending on unnecessary infrastructure, the bigger that number, good thing. When it comes to increasing bed nights and accommodation turnover in Taupo, the bigger that number, a good thing. But when it comes to increasing rates during a crisis with the cost of living, the smaller that number is a good thing. Now, the role of a mayor is not that of a financial analyst. We have accountants. We've got people who can do that for us. It's that of a leader, someone who's going to take us and inspire us. So we turn the tables around rather than look at savings, but as far as increasing and how we can make more. We need to know where our weaknesses lie, and I've laid mine out. They've been laid bare. The current regime's laid their weaknesses out bare for the last 3 years, or perhaps I should say laid them out bare, covered them up, dug them up, rebuilt them, replanned it, reconsulted, and put a traffic light on it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We now move on to the council candidate's question. Based on your research of Taupo Council's financial reports, what areas would you focus on to reduce council operating costs?
According to Council's records, the total debt of Council is nearly $15 million less than the forecast. This is due to, as Christine mentioned just before, funds provided by the central government, shortages in labour and material. In other words, if it wasn't for those two elements, the debt would have been most likely higher than the forecast. But I am not here to judge how Council has been performing. Based on my conversations with hundreds of you on their doorsteps and in the streets, there are deep concerns when it comes to projects. Even when people are happy with projects, they're not necessarily happy with the way these projects have been implemented. I can say to this, A, to get our priorities right, and B, to review and improve the way we implement our ideas and put them to action. My simple answer to all of this is that it should come from you. A conversation with you, an open and consistent conversation with you will put us on the right track. Thank you.
Well, the good news is that we do have a surplus, but we also have this rate increase. So I think it's back to common sense and critical thinking. I would definitely look at amalgamating Amplify Taupo and the destination Great Lake Taupo. Rotorua did this a number of years ago, around 2015, and we just have too much duplication, having those two agencies both focused on economic development. The other thing is that I would really question some of the wasteful spending. $84,000 on signage on the Taupo Napier Highway. That's a lot of expense there, and $12,000. I searched that under the Official Information Act. That was spent on getting a lawyer to find out that there had been a breach of code of conduct when everyone knew there was a breach of a code of conduct by a certain councillor making an unfortunate slip of the tongue. But $12,600 an hour, 20 hours to be told that? I don't think so. And then there's some of the economic development and the more positive things that we can do to help bring in and broaden the tax base, the ratepayer base of the town. And then there is, I've just got it here, some cost reduction around external consultants.
My best experience is as an engineer dealing with infrastructure, so this is the area where I believe I got offer the most. The core business of councils should be running the basic services and utilities, and it's pretty clear to me that this place needs a bit of a dose of critical thinking in this area. I haven't poured through the books to find out every excess, but I've already mentioned transportation is the area I'm most familiar with. For example, that roundabout at Arrowsmith Kittle Drive, I believe, could have been done for less than half the $2 million or so they cost to build it. Not to mention the two years of crashes and mayhem the council caused up there with their tinkerings beforehand. So where there's smoke, there's fire, and I think I've already seen plenty enough to think there could be a bit of a raging inferno going on in some areas, other areas as well. And along the way, we seem to have sacrificed some of the little bit important things like reduced opening hours for the library and AC bars. So I think somewhere along the line the wheels have started to fall off a bit, and from what I have seen, there probably should have been no excuse for any rates rise at all. Thanks.
Well, one thing I learned in business, going into major corporations and being asked to look at their financials and how we can cut costs, usually starts with management, getting rid of some of the big overheads. Selling assets is not something that I'm in favour of. I don't think our Taupo needs to be selling assets. I've read the financial report and there's a lot of areas that can be cut. But look, I'm an outsider just looking in. I've got to get in there and really do the homework. So that's all I've got to offer you tonight. I'm sorry, but I need to get in there and have a good look at it and analyse the whole thing. I'm talking to people, and it's your feedback that's going to help me realise what's going on in there and get it done. Thank you.
Council's a big business, $144 million a year. That's a lot of money. I've been in business all my life, so I know what it's like to analyse and look at costs and always try and keep track of what's happening so they don't increase too much. And like all of you here, obviously we don't want our rates to rise. And I think one of the things I always like to use the analogy that if you've got a Labrador and you keep feeding it, it just gets fat. So we have to make sure that when council spends money, it's your money they're spending. They get it from rates and from levies and fees, and we have to make sure it's done efficiently, properly, and so you get the best value for your dollar, and we're always checking to make sure that we're not overspending. Thank you.
Yes, well, the number one rule with everything we do, whether it's in reducing costs or anything we do, is common sense. That's the first step to making sure we're taking a common sense approach to how we're spending what we're doing. When you look at the big ticket items, council services is number one. So I don't know whether there might be some possibility there for some shared services. That's something that should always be reviewed and looked at. The number two big item is for the district is wastewater. And that's real interesting when you look at the long-term plan, because that's the driving document. I'd urge you all to go and look at the long-term plan, because wastewater is due to peak out over the next 2 years with the developments that are going on, and then it's due to drop 2025 to under half of what currently is going to peak out at. So I think at the moment things are being managed really, really well, but those things have got to be kept an eye on. So anything we can do to make things work better without spending more is always good. We can't just keep cutting costs. We've got to maintain and manage those costs and make sure we're using a common sense approach, getting the best value for our money and the best services we can possibly get. One of the huge challenges that we're faced with as a district is our facilities. And when you look at it, our public conveniences, for example, are horrendous in Taupo. So those are the areas we've got to watch.
I think balance is important, but because of the changing environment in local government, I would think it prudent to take into consideration the uncertainties before finalising any major fiscal decisions, such as future funding. May not be able to do planned projects in the capital schedule as future funding is not certain. Legislative changes, the reforms, the RMA, the 3 waters, and etc. The environmental standards are increasing, but we don't know the extent of these changes. This will result in increasing compliance costs to meet the new standards, which could result in affordability issues. Technology. Advances in technology such as electric vehicles, wastewater treatment, while underway, there is no certainty about when it's available and at what cost, affecting the provision of council infrastructure services. Deliverability of the Capital Works program, not enough contractors available, staffing to carry out any Capital Works programs, time delays and cost increase. COVID-19, future lockdowns impacting the ability for capital projects to be undertaken. Otherwise, the stabilising or sustainability of rates and reducing of those rates is, and capital expenditure where practical, is important, and it's about balance. Kia ora.
Right, well, I think from my accountancy standpoint, I think we're in a really good position. We're in a pretty strong position. We've got a lot of uncertainties ahead of us, like that has been touched on already. We don't know where we're going to be, in a couple of years' time with what we've got to be spending on water and all that sort of stuff. We can take all the, make all the guesswork and stuff that we want to. But at the end of the day, I 100% agree with Jane in terms of just taking a good look at the day-to-day operations of council and making sure that we're not duplicating effort. I think with the current structure that we've got in council, with them spread over so many offices, that's just asking for that duplication of skill and effort and things to be creeping into a dozen different workplaces. So when we do start to amalgamate everybody back together into one new home, making sure that we do that in an efficient way that makes sure that we're not just carrying forward any of the duplication that's sort of crept into the system in general operating staff, as well as with those entities that Jane touched on with, Amplify and Destination Great Lake Taupo, and making sure that we've got one consistent entity that can sell Taupo as a place to live, work, do business and to visit. So yeah, I think that consistency and that scope creep is key.
I want to work with our community to ensure that any projects that are put on the table will be money well spent both now and long term. And that's where communication is key. Also making sure that we apply for as many, if not all, possible funding opportunities, like the CBD transformation. Now, many councils didn't bother to apply for this, yet we received $20.6 million. Now, opportunities like these are a great way to reduce operating costs. Now, I understand that the question is about how we can save money, but sometimes we do need to invest for long-term growth. Another bridge is going to cost us, and I think that we can all agree that something needs to be done sooner rather than later. Now, if this is what we're wanting to hold off due to cost, then maybe we could look into public transport, putting on more bus routes to give people the opportunity to get to work, go home for lunch, and then get home at night. Now, this can ease congestion, and this may give us a little bit more time to investigate a viable option. Now, I've been told by many councillors that your first term is like an apprenticeship, so please give me the chance and the honour to learn from you all. Thank you.
Okay, so councillors have the opportunity through annual plan and long-term plan cycles to decide on how to enact its vision, priorities, and accommodate what the community has asked for through consultation processes and the must-haves through core service and infrastructure. The operational side of how these things are achieved and what the budget settings are to be are the role of the CEO and his team to deliver. OPEX is reported on and monitored through the CEO's monthly report to Council and also through his KPIs through his performance monitoring meetings, which are held regularly with Council to ensure that Council's only employee is doing the job properly. To reduce OPEX or to cut costs means you need to probably reduce levels of service around what Council deliver. This could affect gardens, mowing of reserves, through to dropping big projects so staff time is not required. Then there are your non-variables like increases in fuel costs, inflation, carbon credits, tax, and that's just to name a few. If the books are not going to balance and there aren't enough in the budgets, the work program simply needs to change. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I believe we may be in for some tough financial times in the next few years. We have significant inflationary pressures, which may yet worsen. There are supply chain issues, trade shortages. We're facing a very uncertain future economically, and we're all going to have to tighten our belts. One way to mitigate those challenges and save costs in the long term, I believe, is to ensure we have efficient project management in place. I can speak to that. That's my area of expertise. It's not fail-safe, but it will undoubtedly minimise the effects of potential cost increases and budget overruns. Perhaps some budgeted projects will need to be downgraded to nice-to-haves and put on hold until we see some financial and economic stability. Another aspect could be to investigate alternative revenue streams. Perhaps we can look into council land and building assets covering their own costs. Why not lease to local groups and community organisations for a reduced rental to cover those costs and take the burden off ratepayers? The added benefit being that it could make premises more affordable for charity and not-for-profit groups, clubs, local organisations. I know they're crying out for the space. I'm quite heavily involved with community and volunteer groups, and I see a real need there. So I'd be pretty keen to help out wherever I could.
So what I focus on? Quite simply what you want, what you ask for. But you need to understand that comes at a cost. You can have whatever you want as a community, but you have to pay for it. And you have to separate capital costs from operating costs because they're two completely separate beasts. The district plan, the annual plan is what we go through seeking your input, and then we assign projects and operating costs from that. We did that this year and we went through it line by line in detail, and it was quite painful because we had to cut things out that we knew the community wanted. If we cut any more, it would have hurt us. There are significant operating costs over which we have no choice. They are mandated, they are coming down the pipeline, as I mentioned earlier on with 3 waters and with the RMA reforms. You can't change that. So that is a non-discretionary item. The only things we have control over are the discretionary items, which is the placemaking, which is what we need to go to you, which we have done to seek your input. So that's what I'll be focusing on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, after spending the last 9 years poring over financials and trying to make the most of them, and make the most sense of them, you have to understand of $103 million of operational funding, the bulk of that is in your personnel and your suppliers. So I know the CEO the last few years has realigned, restructured the organisation to make more efficiencies, but on the challenging time now, maintaining staff, quality staff, certainly since post-COVID, we want to maintain our quality staff, and you have to pay them. The other way is obviously of that operational cost, we have some of that goes towards depreciation and your finance cost, which is part of your rates. But so I have the opinion that if you want to reduce your rates or your operating costs, you're going to reduce your services. So I'll never ever advocate for that or never support that.
As you would have heard from those who spoke before me, they have financial backgrounds and they're very, very good in that area. I obviously, from my introduction, you know that I don't have the financial mind. I'm going to be honest. I'm just being honest. However, when I looked at the report, I could see that there were some things that they could reduce on. When I looked a little bit further, I also saw that there was an historic agreement made a few months ago that some of you may know. It was in Turangi with Ngāti Turangi Tukua, working with iwi. So what happened as a result of that is there is a co-governance down there in Turangi, and they're taking over part of, and the Mayor can correct me if I'm wrong, but looking after some of the assets and some of the parks and reserves in Turangi and being managed by the iwi. That is going to reduce some cost. It is small, I know, but it is a start. And I think whether or not it could be implemented here in Taupō, I don't know. That would be something for my Māori colleagues over here that would have to be considered. However, it is something that is reducing costs. It is a start. That's it from me. Thank you.
Like Daniel, a friend of mine, I'm not a financier, ask my wife. I'm a project manager. Now, I have read the reports, and I see that there are some costs we can't avoid. There'll be costs in the future we can't avoid. We have to build a bridge at some stage. But the way we manage the projects in my neck of the woods is how we make the money. I've been involved in construction for 35 years. We have won 3 awards in Auckland for some of the best projects, built on time, under budget. We know the secrets, and it wasn't Kiwi Homes. Please, it wasn't Kiwi Homes. The RMA has been an issue. It's being replaced by three new bits of legislation. That will ease the burdens. But this council is not just about building projects. It's about helping communities. It's about diversifying. It's about giving communities an opportunity to take over stuff and take care of it. It's about you people out there in every neck of the wood being part of council because you can react with us. We'll listen to you. There are a lot of people in this town that have invested a lot of their lives in it. I have visited this town often since I was a young fellow. Our families lived here. I used to live in Auckland. And I'd spend my whole holidays here. And then 20 years ago I thought, I want to go back to Taupō to be there forever. So 20 years ago I made a move, and it's been historic. You check the papers 4 years ago, I was in them. So we are managing our land as Maori. We'll continue to
What's great about sitting down this end is that pretty much everyone takes all of the hard stuff away from you and gives all of these incredible answers. It allows you to just use up the time to talk a bit more about yourself. So it's probably something I'm going to use. I just had a quick squiz of the panel. I'm not going to lie. I think I'm probably one of the youngest candidates, if not the youngest candidate here, born in the mid-80s. So I have grown through the technological age. So not only do I understand the advancements of technology, but also how much that's going to impact our tamariki and mokopuna. So when we talk about reducing council operational costs, I try and look at it from the other end. How can we future-proof our region to ensure that our tamariki and our mokopuna not are well looked after? And don't get me wrong, I want them to build a bit of resilience for sure. And I don't think that everything should be offered to them on a silver platter. What I want, though, is for them to have more opportunities than I could ever imagine. And that's what I feel like I can bring as a part of Te Papamārearea. The other thing is, I'm humble enough to go, you have experience in this space. I'm more than happy to take it. Kia ora koutou. Try being on Te Papamārearea Ward and your surname starts with L. You're right at the end. So yes, Anna Park stole all my answers, but I'll just go through the basics. Like we said, 70% of our operating costs is wages. So yeah, we need to continue with those services. I'm sure that, like they said, they've gone through line by line, and she's pretty tight. So what I'm going to talk about now is being on the Risk and Assurance Committee and being on a number of committees involved in the early days of COVID, you got to see quite a lot of the impact on our council. So I'm standing up for council right now, but yeah, it has been very hard. You know, there's supply chain issues, the cost of building materials all doubling, and trying to get a staff. We know that our council, they'll put an ad in the paper or seek, and they will get no responses. So these are real issues and all impact on our operating costs. So yeah, you might think, oh, well, we've got all these jobs that aren't filled, so we'll be saving a few dollars. That's going to have an impact on our business. So let's forget about operating costs. Let's just focus a bit more on managing our projects and doing that well.
Well, there we are. Some interesting answers to that, and very good for the times, I think. And thank you all for keeping relatively to time. We're now a little bit ahead of our program, and it takes the pressure off us in the next couple of sessions. The next is round two questions, and I'll call on the mayor's candidates to answer the question that I've put up there now. What more can the council do to support training initiatives that give our youth the tools and skills to get them into a career of their choice? David.
Thanks, Bob. Three things. Quite simply, we must support our organisations that help these kids. And as Kiram said, that's the most important thing for our future is our kids. Pathways and to Ohumai, although they have a new special name now, they must continue to get fully funded and full council support. That's our future. That's our training. The other thing is we've got 2 wonderful secondary schools, and there is too much of a drain still with kids going out of town to school. We must try and address that. I've been meeting with the schools. I meet with the head boy, head girl every year of each school and give them our full support. And also the third thing, and I don't know if it's going to lay a bit of controversy here tonight, but that private school that was muted several years ago, why not get it back on the table and let's have a look, see if we can address this situation, our drainage out of town to external regions for our kids. You know, I understand there's tradition, there's history and all that sort of thing, but I think there's far too many going out of town with the quality of our schools. So we must support our schools. Thank you very much.
As I said to you in the introduction, the Mayor needs to lead the battle for whatever the community needs. Available courses have improved, but not to the extent required. The pressure must go on and stay on. There's a reality that university education means going to another place, but many more qualification courses need to be available here. Tourism's only 20% of our economy, and I know to a lot of us it feels a lot more. But there are far more jobs available than ever before. Manufacturing, dairy and geothermal are big employers in this district, and the jobs available in these areas are well-paid jobs for trained employees. The geothermal industry is the golden goose for this district, and the council needs to keep supporting the amazing work being done by Amplify in this area. It opens up opportunities for our children and our grandchildren to have jobs that keep them here for a lifetime. We must be seen as a growth district to ensure that while our kids can be qualified at home or away, there are great jobs if they choose Taupō to work, and why would they not?
There's a line that's been bandied around on the news quite often. I never thought I'd get to use it, but here we go. I respectfully refute the premise of this question. To me, what it does is it infers that there's a lack of support, and it's holding back our children from pursuing the career of their choice. And to me, choice says you have options. My greater concern is those who don't have options. No one's mentioned the fact that we've got skyrocketing school absentees at the moment. The children going to school without lunch, without dinner. So their motivation at the end to attend a program when they've barely got enough energy to stay awake, or the support at home because of the financial hardship they're going through at the moment, to me says that when we get our ducks in line, we've got to start with the small ones first. And that has to be said. So secondary education, by definition, comes after primary. These are things that if you don't like your garden, you still own it. You have to garden it. This is our town. These are our problems. These are your problems, even if they're not your children's. So you need to make a change, or you'll still own the problem in years to come.
Well, thank you very much for that from David, Christine and Sean. We'll now move on to the candidates' questions. The first one is, what potential do you see for more business growth outside of the tourism sector, and how would you promote business establishment and growth?
When it comes to the economy, nobody has a magical remedy. Our local economy is not apart from the national and global economy. There are elements that we couldn't control. I have to say, though, I need to acknowledge some efforts that are happening locally by some of our local organizations like Town Centre and the Business Chamber and other organizations. There are conversations already happening, and these conversations need to be extended and include more businesses. There are good ideas that I can think of. Having a proper and consistent shop local campaign can help. Some creative ideas of events that are unique to our town, where we can promote our local businesses and local products, can help. But in my opinion, the most important conversation needs to be had with the local businesses themselves. We need to be listening to them, and that's how we can help them, and that's how we can support them. Thank you so much.
I was fortunate enough to go to the geothermal week just recently, and the amazing thing is that our geothermal resource is completely, has been underutilised for years. But we now have a number of hapu coming together. And I believe we need to really progress innovation hubs and knowledge sharing, and also look at the tech industry, because those are where the high-paying jobs are. And we need to look at the high-paying jobs that can enable our youth to actually take their careers in a different direction, in a new direction. But it also comes out of some of the conferences and seminars that we're not getting. Rotorua has been having a woodwork seminar for many years now, and that enables some of the people in the community to better address where innovation in terms of our construction and our building can take place, with off-site construction, for example, with pre-insulated, pre-drilled, pre-wired panels that can enable a building like Te Wairoa House to go up in 5 or 6 weeks, not in 6 or 7 months. So that's the focus for me, is on broadening. Thank you.
I was going to say there's no silver bullets to that question, but from the sounds of it, maybe geothermal might be, but these are just my ideas anyway. Firstly, I was saying, along with the internet, COVID has done a pretty good job of smashing people's perceptions of having to live in their place of their job, and especially the office type roles. So catering for the demands of city people like me, who move here and work remotely, is now a realistic business opportunity for others. And those demands can range from things like kids' education, which has been alluded to communal office setups, to leisure opportunities. Second, I'll just throw it in there. I like the zero fee scheme, which they did in Invercargill, to successfully boost student numbers down there. We don't have a large tech institute or university here yet, although that would be a great thing to have here for youth anyway. But left field ideas like that, I think, are to be encouraged. And thirdly, lastly, this is just my own bet. Greater allowance by council regulations and attitude towards alternative long-term living arrangements such as tiny homes and motorhomes. These can be respectively done and don't need to become the desperate slums that some might imagine. And if Taupo can do this better than other places, i.e. similar to the zero student schemes fees,
it concerns me when I walk around town and I see a lot of businesses with closing down and staff wanting. I've got 2 businesses down here, as I mentioned before, and we can't get staff. I mean, this is not necessarily a council problem. It's a national problem, but we need to sit down with council and work out how we can actually help businesses, and instead of having all this bureaucratic bullshit that comes through and prosecuting us. Like, we had a situation where council came up to us and said we've got too much signage out. Well, $4,000 later, somebody came up from council and says, I'll just take that sign down. Well, that's really helpful. So, there you go.
We live in a fantastic town. We're very fortunate that tourism is obviously a very important part of our town, but we also have other revenues. That we've got farming, forestry, power stations, which is great, because if it wasn't for that, Taupo would be looking really sick right now, like Queenstown from COVID. So we've got diversity, which is great. We need to obviously help any businesses come here. My concern is that statistically going forward, we're going to age in population, which means that we don't have enough young people to basically do a lot of the jobs. So we need to make the town, so we're all here now because we want to live here. We need to make sure that people want to come to this place. They want to bring their families, increase their families, so that we have a workforce, so that business will be encouraged to come here because it's such a great place. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think, again, that common sense approach makes a big difference, and I've been out and about around some of the businesses, and I was talking to a relative new business here in Taupo last week, and they were saying that their biggest their biggest issue with coming to Taupō and getting set up was they operate everywhere else in the country. They just duplicated what they did everywhere else. But in actual fact, while they were setting up here, the compliance levels and the common sense of a compliance and the difficulties of dealing through those issues was massive for them. So I think if we can make things more attractive for businesses to come here, set up, trade here, we could be we're a very central location, and we could be a very powerful, positive distribution hub. Our Achilles heel is we don't have a port, but we've got one sitting in Napier and we've got one sitting in Taupō, in Tauranga. We've got this roading linkage here now where you could distribute throughout New Zealand. We've got this big industrial area, but we've got to be user-friendly and we've got to make it easy for people to come. We're a sought-after destination for tourism, but we're rapidly growing. We've been a sought-after destination for retirement as well, but we're rapidly, rapidly growing as being the place to live.
As my colleague Jane had said, she's spoken about the geothermal sector, how large it is here. But tourism is still recovering from COVID, the COVID impact, and it will be ongoing, I think, for a little while until basically the green light is given and the borders are fully open so that tourism can enter back in its fullest state. And getting people is really hard, is the hard bit because of demographic makeup that is in our Taupō district. But most businesses are small to medium here. But like Jane said, we do have a large geothermal sector. And the Taupō area in itself is attractive to younger people like skiing, boating, etc. But there is a need to encourage digital development, e-commerce to attract the staying capacity of young people in our district. So I also believe that we should focus on what we do now and in the meantime prepare for growth in the even larger manufacturing industry. But this means affordable housing is needed. This will support the construction industry, but we just need to find solutions for the supply issues and the demand. Other business ideas, electric car charging stations. Wow, there you go. Thank you.
So obviously tourism's a great thing. We love that. I think the easiest thing we've got here as a low-hanging fruit is to help grow business tourism. I've been a member of our professional body for the last couple of years, and one of my key roles there was running our business events where we ran conferences and things. We've just got back from a few hundred people meeting up in Christchurch where we collectively over 2 days pumped $500,000 into the Christchurch economy in the middle of the week in the off season, so I think hospitality would love that here. There's just a real lack of those sorts of conference venues and all that sort of stuff in Taupō, so encouraging that sort of stuff for business tourism would be a really great start to get ahead on in that area. The rest of it is kind of chicken and egg. I mean, I've been hiring constantly for the last 4 years, and most of the time I end up hiring people remotely in either Napier or Hamilton or Auckland because they don't want to move their family to Taupō because of the struggles with getting their kids into a school or finding a nice home in a suburb that they want to sort of live in. So those housing restrictions and things that are a pain for a lot of people, and the pressures on our schools that are constantly sort of bursting at the seams, we need to be putting pressure on the Ministry of Education and our infrastructure and stuff development to make sure that we are able to serve everybody.
Well, working with already established groups like Amplify Taupō, a great organisation who both help local business thrive as well as help relocate businesses to Taupō. Another is Pathways Taupō. This organisation is another prime example of how we can get youth into employment opportunities and help them grow into business owners themselves. We need to work hard to make sure that we both attract and keep our skilled professionals here in Taupō, from doctors to trades to hospo professionals. Taupō is an amazing place to live, work and play, and we need to scream that message loud by partnering with such organisations. The airport upgrade is an amazing asset, but I feel that we need to look into more flight options, giving people the ability to be able to fly into Auckland or Wellington, be in the middle of town by 9 a.m. and then be back home to Taupō by 6. This will attract people who work in those areas to hopefully make Taupō home, as well as attracting new businesses to town, which is always a positive. I believe that we need to look after our local business here already by regular engagement and not being afraid to ask them their thoughts or advice. Thank you.
Everyone's pretty much said everything that there is to say in this space. Tourism is not our only contributor to our GDP, which is really fortunate for us. We also have agriculture, forestry, events, and of course, as Christine said, our golden goose, geothermal. Council as community leaders have set up a council-controlled organisation called Destination Great Lake Taupō, who look after the tourism industry and market us as a destination. We also have a service agreement and financially support on your behalf Amplify. Amplify are here to facilitate and attract businesses to Taupō and offer existing businesses support in their times of struggle. Taupō District has already reached its projected population of over 40,000 people. A silver lining of the COVID cloud was that you don't have to live in a main centre to run very successful businesses. You can have a better work-life balance and get better bang for your buck in the housing market in Taupō. I think Council actually needs to be thanked for being a key stakeholder and bucking the trend through sensible long-term
There are two areas of growth that I would like to touch on, if I have time. One is that we are very reliant on out-of-town produce here in Taupō, but I believe we can grow food locally along the lines of what Miraka are doing, using geothermal energy, greenhouses. Let's make use of our unique resources. Hawke's Bay growers were underwater 3 times this year, so Pukekohe, Levin, they had similar issues. Let's keep it local. The other area of growth I can speak to is around the availability of quality premises for new businesses coming to town. It's been touched on that compliance is an issue, and it really is. The bureaucracy at the moment is cost prohibitive. It's not time efficient. Amplify might do a good job of encouraging business here, but we need to make it affordable for them to set up in the first place. It cost my employer $5,000 to have one sign erected on Spa Road. That's not efficient. That's not efficient at all. We are a destination location. We've got beautiful scenery. People do want to live here. So we need to add a bit of character to the buildings in CBD. Let's make it efficient for landlords to upgrade their buildings, to encourage tenants who then pay for a fit out, who then employ people, who keep the tradespeople in business. I hope the changes to the RMA
First of all, let me echo and support the comments that Christine made around Amplify. I would continue the investment with that group. And the geothermal, this is the jewel in our crown. They are valuable corporate citizens and we need to maintain the relationship Council already has with them. Council is the planning authority for land use. The district plan is currently out for consultation, ensuring that there is sufficient land zoned for the appropriate use, industrial in particular, is important. Have your say. Housing is a major issue. How many businesses have tried to attract staff, cannot get a house for them to live in? The housing strategy is being worked through at the moment. It frustrates me when I hear people having difficulties with our policy settings, our practice, or our processes, getting rid of the bureaucracy. If we say we're open for business, what we do must reflect that. So I would focus on that. We put a 15% loading on local contractors post the lockdown. There's a conversation we can have about continuing that. Finally, let's make this the best place to live, work and play. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, as previous speakers have mentioned, we have other tourism is roughly 25% of our GDP. We have forestry, agriculture and geothermal, so they are key cornerstones of our economy as well. I mean, obviously we live in an awesome district, with so many things, attributes that attracting young people, like to attract young people here. But as the previous speaker mentioned, we have to look at our housing strategy, which we are doing, and also with education. You can keep younger families here with their children too, so they don't need to leave to go other districts. And also as Taupo District Council, we like to promote ourselves as the hub, even for light manufacturing, and with the so many opportunities there. Connectivity is better now through Tauranga, Rotorua, the Triangle. So we just like to see us, the young families, opportunity to come here and live. And we also look to guys like Jamie Kean, to these private enterprise, philanthropic, and also the Māori economy is a huge, is a huge opportunity to invest in this town, to the benefit of all. Kia ora.
Kia ora. New industrial estates are being built and new and existing Taupō businesses are setting up shop. Taupō is a central hub of North Island. Transport and logistics providers benefit from setting up in Taupō due to the rising cost of petrol and diesel. Ladies and gentlemen, I deal with lots of businesses who are experiencing staff shortages. Some projects are behind schedule simply because they don't have the staff. So we need to invest first in our youth and also in those who need jobs. Engineering contractors can also relocate to Taupō with the Contact geothermal project currently being built. There are other parallelated projects also in the pipeworks coming up in the next several years. Both these industries will create skilled long-term employment in the area. Factory warehouse complexes would provide jobs for those less skilled. An example of this is an employer that I'm dealing with. They've set up shop. They've got about 10 employees. They've got a small little workshop that they're doing. They make trailers and they make small transportable homes. In their project, they are wanting to increase their staff to 80. They're going to build a very large warehouse, and that will create a lot more jobs.
So as an architect, I get involved in projects both on land and in industrial zones. I've also got projects planned to improve the way we can develop land on the Mayoral side. I have a relationship with Hastings and our Hastings district and our people over there, and we're going to bring a package to council you won't believe. I'm also aware of 3 projects that will invest in our present geothermal projects and add value to them. That's something I've got in my back pocket. Also, we need more educational facilities, someone say. I have got the developers that want to put a hotel and a university in this town. We know where they are. We've got the land. Maori have the land. Housing. Our Maori people can take care of our own housing if we get access to our own land through better relationships with the council. That'll take the burden off. There's strips of land all over the place we can't build on presently. That'll take care of that issue. We need education, we need people, we need workers. I hope to be there to help them all. Thank you.
As much as I was hoping to repeat the sentiments of the last questions, I believe, unfortunately, my candidates missed out on a couple of key things that they didn't mention. Firstly, with regards to businesses, unfortunately, some have to die in order for an economy to thrive. And I believe that some businesses are sadly falling by the wayside because of their lack of understanding of one thing, and that's technology. The advancements of technology have really helped us to communicate to the world. If your business is as good as you think your business is, you now have a global market to access at the push of a button. These types of technology did not exist 10 years ago. Now, I can communicate to everyone in the world using a simple device that I carry with me every single day. If my product is good enough, it will sell. But what are we doing to help future-proof technology within our community? That's a big question. Are you familiar with Web3? Are you familiar with the metaverse? Are you familiar with NFTs? If not, get familiar. This is the language that our kids and our mokopuna are going to be talking for the next 20 years to come. Understanding the landscape of the future helps you to plan for your business today. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, last again. Yes, so I used to be on the board of EGLT, chaired it for a little bit before they changed the name to Amplify. So I do support their work and EGLT. I think the main thing is we have business people on those boards, not necessarily councillors or council staff. And I think that's the difference they can make. They work closely with our town centre Taupō and our Chamber of Commerce. And again, those relationships are quite key. But yeah, same answer as everybody else. Geothermal, the direct energy work. We talked about earlier about the Ahi project out at over that general direction. The forestry, for a number of years we've been trying to bring more timber processing to the town, including using the geothermal heat to help with the cost of driving that. We've also had discussions again over the years around our education providers. Yes, we've got 2 high schools, but maybe there is a little bit of room for a private provider, and there's some people in the audience who were involved in projects with that years ago. But we also have the opportunity to grow our toyo homai. At the end of the day, we still need housing for these people, and we need to, as council, provide the infrastructure for those houses.
Well, there we are. That's the end of round 2. Hopefully you've had a lot of information passed on to you from the candidates and their thoughts on the direction in the next 3 years of a Taupō district. Now we come to questions sent in by you, the people of Taupō. We have got ourselves a little bit ahead of time, so I've asked our team that are going to ask the questions to give as many as they possibly can in the next wee while. What will happen is that they have a series of questions. Some have identified the candidate they want to answer. The others that don't have a candidate that they want to answer will be pulled out of the bucket. They have a bucket here with the names on, and they will call out the councillor to answer the questions. So these are questions at random. I've increased the time for you to 2 minutes to answer those, so you're able to spend a little bit more time expanding on your theories. So I'm going to ask Paul Gardner and Catherine Uvagen to come up and carry on with the questions.
We've changed the format slightly. We've changed the format slightly.
Okay, just go for it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
Which ones we do?
Just change the, explain that we've changed the format slightly.
When you ask the question, when you ask for the candidate, ask them to stand up so we can quickly identify where they're sitting.
Good evening. Since we have a little bit of time, we've changed the format yet again. A bit of democracy in action here. A couple of the questions we'll actually ask each person for an answer. We think they're that important. A couple of the questions the audience has asked, we can ask for a hands up. A simple 10 seconds or hands up will actually give you the answer to some of these questions. There are also other questions which are relating to specific people, so bear with us, we'll get through, hopefully get you home before the weekend. Ski season, etc. Okay, so let's start with one of the raised hands questions from Laurie Burdett. Do any of the candidates, please, if you put your hands up, if any of the candidates have any association whatsoever with the organisation Voices for Freedom? So if you are... Okay, so the organisation Voices for Freedom, I think, is one of the groups down looking after Parliament grounds for 23 days earlier this year. So there's the answer to that for Laurie. Thank you. Another question with the hands up situation from David and Sally Mansell. Are you in favour of the government's intervention in Three Waters? Raise hands for yes, please, if you are in support of the government's intervention for Three Waters. Okay, and I don't have to ask the question for them to put their hands up if they don't. Okay. A further question comes from Jeff Burton. Are any of the candidates standing who are endorsed by any political party? So anybody here standing has affiliations to or has the political support of a political party? Okay, thank you. And I will now step back and ask Catherine to ask a couple of questions.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou and welcome everybody. From Bernard Krustovsky, now you don't get 2 minutes to do this. You should keep it to about 50 seconds. So from Bernard, what practical skills and personal attributes do you bring to the council table that in your opinion would make you an effective councillor? And would you please stand up when you answer? So we'll start at the other end again.
For councillors.
This is councillors.
Why not? You can sit down, David. No.
Thank you. Well, I'm a people's person. I love people and I'm a good communicator. I love to listen to people and I love a personal touch. In the last few weeks, I have knocked on more than 600 doors in this town. So this is something I believe our town needs a lot. This is just an example of the things that I can do. I am a team worker and I get things done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I absolutely champion ethics, and so it's ethical values. Values like fairness and honesty and transparency. And that's coupled with critical thinking and common sense. Thank you.
I hope to be a team player and contribute my critical thinking skills as an engineer and everything else.
Well, I'm a businessman. I thought we'd went through this question before, but I'm a businessman. Yeah, I'm a businessman and I get on with everybody. I talk to people, I get your feedback, and we just do something about it. I mean, I thought we went through this. Sorry.
Common sense decision making, I think as I get older, I'm not sure about everybody out there, but I do worry that a lot of decisions get made that you just got to wonder what were they thinking. So I just bring common sense decision making.
Thank you. This could become a bit of a crack record because it's common sense and communicating with the people, and that's what's required.
Yes, I'm the same too, common sense, and also I believe in authentic engagement and the necessity of really hearing what people in the community are saying and not just hearing but listening as well, two different things. Kia ora.
So I think a bit of proactive problem solving, some financial literacy, and a bit of a team player and not afraid to ask the tough questions.
So pretty much like everybody else is kind of going on about as well, communication is key. I've been part of the TCT board for the past 3 years. I just recently stepped down. So the business community is who I have been working with for quite a while. 3 kids here. And I think I may be the youngest, 92, so is young. So some young blood.
Oh my God, I think I'm old enough to be James's mother. Look, I offer you experience, I offer you open-mindedness, I offer you big picture thinking. I have no personal agenda. I love this district so much and I'm there because I'm passionate. I'm lucky to have the support of my husband who allows me to do this full time, and it is something that just enriches me to know that I am doing something that's going to be wonderful for my children and wonderful for their children, and just be a district where everyone can live, work and play and have equal opportunity. Thank you.
Again, like the others, I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I guess my career path has given me the opportunity to work in different facets of local government. I think I've got a lot to offer to bring some cohesion and understanding around some of that. I'm very passionate about community, hence the time bank references in all of my bios. And I think common sense also. I'm very efficient, and I hope to carry that through and represent you all at the council table. Thanks.
I feel like saying ditto, but I won't. Common sense as well, but I'm not sure that's a sensible thing. It's an oxymoron. Common sense, in my experience, is an endangered species. My observation anyway. The worst thing you can do to someone, to a police officer or to an ex-cop, is tell a lie. So integrity and honesty are absolutely sacrosanct to me. So no going back on that.
Absolutely.
I don't play games. What you see is what you get. If I don't like something, I'll tell you. If I like something, I will tell you. And those who have sat around the table at council will testify to that. I have an inability to keep my mouth shut when I see things I don't like. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I regard myself as a team player. I love being out in the community. I've been in the community a long time. My mantra is, when connecting and listening and learning from the community, is to go out in the community. I don't expect the community to come to me. And I also think, in my experience around the table, we have to be managing some changes in some challenging times. So I look forward to your support.
Kia ora tātou. For the last 13 years, I've worked for a government department as a work broker and as a case manager. I've helped some of our most vulnerable people who are out there trying to get jobs and improve their lives. I've helped a lot of people become independent and less on government dependence, and they're able to live more successful lives. As a work broker, I've dealt with businesses, iwi, hapu, both in Taupo and Turangi. I love getting out amongst the district, I love being with the people, and I like connecting. You'll hear me say that a lot. Connect, collaborate, and commit. And that's what I'm all about. Kia ora tātou.
I was raised by my great-grandmother. She reminded me, you've got 2 ears, listen twice, speak once. I've spent my entire 40-plus years in the creative industry, construction, engineering, design, management, plant. I've been the problem solver. People say, how do you fix this? This way, problem solved. I get paid for that. I want to be paid by you guys to do the same problem solver. Education, there's different ways of doing it. Housing, different ways of doing it. This lady over here mentioned about off-site manufacture. I've been in the industry 25 years. I was head of the New Zealand Association of one of them. I know what it's done. I know how to make money that way. So yeah, I'm here to serve the people. I want to listen to people. My evening experiences, I have another life. I listen to people in the evenings and I give them what they want. Christine will tell you what it is. Bye. Thank you.
We have a wonderful whakatauki or proverb in te ao Māori, which is ko te amorangi ki mua, ko te hāpai o ki muri. And I'm standing here as a candidate, as that amorangi, as the person that stands in front of everyone, but I acknowledge my hāpai o ki muri, which is the wealth of people that I have. They have my back 100%. These people are incredibly talented. These people, I have a wealth of knowledge, and these people I can lean on and use as a sounding board in any situation. I also am incredibly humble. I love to sit and listen even with people whose opinion differ to mine. That is my strength, and I come with that humbly today. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I've still got some skills left to talk about. But yeah, the main one to talk about is experience. I was in Lakes DHB, dealt with the Rotorua Hospital development. In the middle of that, we had some earthquakes down the South Island, and we had to lift the earthquake strengthening of those buildings. Had issues with dealing with our developer. Turns out Mainzeal had some issues. So yeah, there's, I think, all the experience you have with all the business you're involved with. The second thing is probably networks. I'm fortunate within my day job in terms of dealing with a number of organisations, whether it's Contact Energies, Meraka, that's what you're doing as a day job. So coming to the table with those relationships is helpful. And like my cousins behind me, I'm quite lucky to also have a lot of people supporting me. Thank you for your time. Kia ora.
Don't sit down, Danny.
Here we go, Catherine. Come to me.
I've just asked Danny to stand or just to stay here, and the microphone will be going back the other way this time. So a second question from Bernard Kristofsky.
Thanks, Bernard.
How much quality time can you realistically put into the role of a councillor that allows you to attend workshops, meetings, perform portfolios, reading of papers and reports, research, and social community functions? How much time, quality time, can you realistically put into all of that?
Negotiating with my employer to go part-time to do that. Kia ora. Just like I did when I was DHB. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. Well, I'm self-employed. I work as a facilitator. I also contract out to supply communications for various iwi entities. So because of this flexible living lifestyle, I'm able to invest a lot of time and effort into, mahi that I really enjoy. Whether or not council is a part of that mahi that I really enjoy, I guess time will tell. But I've got to be honest with you, my family come first 100% of the time. So long as I feel that my family have the quality time and effort that they deserve, then I'm more than happy to reinvest the rest of that time into what needs to be done. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
I'm semi-retired. I haven't had a pay packet. I haven't had to stand up for a pay packet for years because I'm self-employed, have my own businesses. They all run themselves. I intend giving you whatever it takes to do this because I know where our people live all around the lake. I know where our land is. I know where our issues are. I've been doing this on the side for a couple of years already and realise there's issues I can solve if I can get into council. So you've got me full-time. Well, 30 hours a week, whatever.
Like a lot of people on the current council, some of them do have jobs. I do have a job, obviously, but I have a very flexible manager. My manager allows me to do the things that I need to do, which is great. I also have a whānau, so like Karam, whānau comes first, but I'm prepared to commit at least 20 to 25 hours a week as a member of council. So, kia ora.
Thank you. I'm sort of retired or semi-retired. I might be asked to call on a bit of babysitting duty. My daughter's just moved back to Taupō for a few months with their children, but apart from that, I've got all the time. I was apart from waking up at 1 o'clock in the morning reading agendas, but I spend a lot of time reading agendas and doing the homework and getting out in the community, talking to the community. So that's a big part of what we do. Not just the reading and the research, it's actually connecting with your communities and understanding what they want and what they don't want.
My retirement 3.5 years ago was an epic fail because I joined council and now I'm working full time. You have my complete attention. My wife will testify to how much time I spend reading. I not only read the council agendas, I read the ancillary papers and I dig in behind the scenes and I read all kinds of stuff which helps to make decisions, which is why, much to the frustration of some of my colleagues on council, I keep asking questions and I will continue to do that. So you will have my undivided attention.
Just as a number of other colleagues have attested to, I too have a lot of support. My family lives locally, a lot of support at home, and equally a significant amount of support from my current employer, who also wants to see the town thrive. So I work part-time currently, which means I have ample time to dedicate to council. I read documentation, agreements, legal documents as a day job, so I have actually become quite efficient with that. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned before, I have the support of my family that I'm able to dedicate myself 100% to the role of a Taupō District Councillor, and I have great pleasure in doing that. There is a lot of reading. I'm also very lucky that being able to commit full-time to Taupō District has allowed me to be the Deputy Chair of the Waikato Civil Defence and Emergency Management Joint Committee for the last 3 years, and that has never happened for a Taupō councillor before. So I take great pride in being able to stretch myself and represent Taupō at a regional level. Thank you.
So I'm lucky enough, about a year and a half ago, I took a leap and we opened up our own marketing agency here in town. Best move I ever made, able to spend time with the kids, etc. But it also gives me the opportunity that a lot of the time I do a lot of my work at night. So as other people have mentioned, my kids always come first, but I definitely can pot the time that is needed into it. Like I said, I am my own boss, which does give me the opportunity to be able to pick my own hours. Thank you.
Ditto. Yeah, I'm self-employed as well, so I've got all the flexibility I need to be able to commit. I've already taken a step back with most of the work that I do. Gentlemen's hours, 10 till 4:30 daily, and I don't work on Fridays. So yeah, I've got a lot of that flexibility and stuff to commit to something else that I'm really passionate about, hopefully being able to give some of my skills to.
Thank you. After working 10.5 years within council, I finished in April this year. So with the mindset that I wanted to give that time, my time and flexibility and full time to this role, should I be elected. I do have some facilitation company, a small facilitation company, and that's really been just a start-up. So it's just flexibility for me is actually good.
Thank you. I'm prepared to commit full-time. I currently work part-time within my own company. But I found when I was on council elsewhere previously that need to be really dedicated, and there was a lot of after hours, a lot of reading, and a lot of communication with the people. And I just find that it's going to be a full-time role. I'm quite happy to do that. Thank you.
Well, if you ask my newly acquired wife, lovely wife, she thinks I've got all the time in the world. So I'd like to be able to give you as much time as needed, although I do have to play a little bit of golf, so I have to justify that a little bit.
Yeah, well, my business, unlike my wife's business, she's full-time in her business, but mine is part-time, and I can dedicate as much time as needed. I've got emails, I've got a phone, just ring me and I'm there. Thank you. Seriously.
I'm self-employed and flexible like some of the others, which does open up time and places. And look, I want to go back now to one of those previous questions because there was a question about Voices for Freedom, and I don't want to be accused of dishonesty at any later time, but I've been to a couple of meetings and I fully support a lot of what they do and stand for. And that's it.
I quite like this order. It gives me a chance to think a bit more. So this is going to be a little bit interesting because I have a confession to make. I'm a workaholic. I really love work. And I and this isn't a Tinder ad, but I'm single. So there are no demands in my home life. And my family that are really important to me. My sister's here and my daughter's watching with her partner, Dylan Pahina. And she'd want me to say that. But right throughout my life, I'm very driven, I'm passionate, I love learning. And I love going to conferences. When I go overseas, I go to a conference because that's what sort of excites me. Sounds a bit weird. And even in the early days, when there was a lot of legislative review, the State-Owned Enterprise Act, the occupational delicensing, the town planning and country reform, regulatory reform, I was the only one that got given that account because I was the only one that would actually enjoy it. So I was down there at the Economic Development Commission looking at the unintended consequences of legislation. I loved it, arguing with Rob Campbell and Dr. Brent Wheeler. So you can rely on me that I am available, accessible. I don't see Saturdays and Sundays. I just see another day where I do my exercise, my dog, and my work. I love it. Thanks.
Well, my long-term roster at work is kind of flexible. I've got weeks with 2 days off, weeks with 3, and some weeks with even 4 days off. I've got a very supportive wife and no dependent kids, so I've got plenty of time to offer. Thank you.
Right, I have a question here from Diane Brophy for Mayor David. You stated in local media recently that you are standing again because you have unfinished business. And Diane asks, what might that unfinished business be?
Very much so. Thank you very much, Paul. I mentioned in my original intro, I must see the airport finished, the upgrade airport finished on time and on budget, and also Wairoa House, that magnificent community house that we're building up in Spa Road. I'd love to see that built on time and on budget. Thank you.
And for Christine Rankin, mayoral candidate, we have a question from Mike Britt. What part has the Taxpayers Union lobby group played in shaping your views on Three Waters? And if none, where have you sourced the information from to form your stated views regarding these water reforms?
I wouldn't say that I've been influenced by the Taxpayers Union, but I agree with some of their beliefs and thoughts, not all of them. For me, I read, I listen, we debate and discuss it around the council table. It's a huge issue. You've got to know everything you possibly can about it. You must have sent me about 39 emails and I answer you the same way each time, so I'm sorry, I probably won't fulfil what you want me to say tonight. But for me, it is the biggest challenge that we have ever had. We've got an issue with water, a major issue, and it has to be dealt with, but not like this. And so we have to get to the stage where we've got something that suits the majority in dealing with our water. It's going to cost Taupō $200 million over the next 10 years to pay for the new water infrastructure that we need to meet the requirements of the new organisation. So we've got some real challenges ahead. I don't agree with the way it's been set up. A 9,000-person bureaucracy with multi-layers of decision-making. No business in the world with any common sense or knowledge would do that. It makes decision-making almost impossible, and it takes any influence you may ever have right out of the equation. And I will never accept that. I will fight till the very end until we get something that's workable, really workable for this district.
This next question is from Diane Brophy, and it's directed at both Ms. Rankin and Mr. Wakelin. So I'll start off with asking Mr. Wakelin to answer first. Local body elections are possibly more important than ever, and electors are entitled to as much information as possible to make an informed decision regarding for whom to vote. Why have neither of you chosen to provide any information to the Policy New Zealand website regarding what your policies are on a range of issues? So, Mr. Wakelin, please.
And I thought I'd duck the Three Waters question. Look, I've got nothing to hide, and I must say there's a new process to me being the first time round. Any of these questions, any information anyone wants to know about me is open and freely available to be asked for. But you've got to understand it's a confusing time looking for any new role. I've had a lot of questions come, I've had emails, I've been sent reports from NASA stating that my opinion is needed on, as a mayor, what would I do to incorporate NASA reports that show the Earth's tilt on the axis is what's causing climate change and not global warming. I haven't answered that one yet either. What I can tell you is, did I go to university? Did I inhale? Yes. Am I happy to live in Taupō? Do I have a criminal record? No. Any of these questions are open in the public forum, and it's certainly something I wouldn't deny. But at the same time, please, some of the questions and some of the work that I've been asked to look at so far, when I'm still learning what my policies are, because at the end of the day, what I want represents 1 out of 30-odd thousand. What you want is what I'm standing for, because at the end of the day, I only get one vote. So I'm going to represent a body of people, and at times I'll need to vote against what I would personally want, but I'll need to vote for what you want. Thank you.
I make no apologies for not answering a questionnaire. I think I'm running an incredibly comprehensive campaign. I am doing every single thing I can to give you the opportunity to meet me, to ask me anything you need to ask me. I've made my details absolutely available. I'm meeting with groups of people. I've been invited to so many functions to speak, and I will talk to you about anything that it is you need to know. Some of those questionnaires take an hour and a half. I'd rather spend the time with you, quite frankly. I have started heard some. I've got halfway through some of them. But our time during a campaign is, if you're out there with the people doing what you're supposed to be doing, very soon you're going to get a pamphlet from me, and it's a very comprehensive one. I do radio advertising. I do newspaper advertising. I do everything I possibly can to make you know about me. One of the things that really worries me is I was invited to a function the other night to tell my story. Then I got some feedback to say that all I talked about was myself. That really frustrated me because they asked me to talk about myself. So I hope to finish some of those questionnaires, but you know, people who make them up need to think when they give you a questionnaire that takes an hour and a half to complete and you've got 10 of them, it's quite a challenge.
Okay, we have a question from, let me see down, Jenny Strong and Judy Napier regarding co-governance. And again, this can be a question which each person can give a brief answer to. And so the question is, what is your views, what is your opinion on local government co-governance? It can go either way for Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, it's 2022, quite simply. We need to work with our iwi partners. We need to be involved with them. 70-odd% of the land is owned by two wharetoa. Why not have a couple of representatives around the table? It just makes sense. Some of that land might even get developed. Isn't that fantastic? So we've just got to be with it, include our wonderful iwi two wharetoa people at the table. So I'm fully supportive of it. Thank you.
The decision on Maori seats has been made, and it is now our responsibility to make it work, and that's the reality of it. There is no more debate about it. It's done and dusted, and it is never going to change. And I can see some people laughing about that. It is the reality of it. The government made a decision about not continuing what used to happen with a referendum. You've got to accept it. They've changed the law. It's done and dusted, and we are going to make it work. The other thing I think is a much bigger question, and I don't think it's a question for local government, it's a question for national government or central government. I believe that if we're going to change our democracy, then you have a right to talk about it and to make a decision about it. And you shouldn't be made to feel that there's anything wrong with you if you don't agree with what's happening. We don't get to talk and debate about things because you get labelled. Immediately you have an opinion that is contrary to what's happening out there. That is really dangerous for us, dangerous for our democracy, dangerous for any changes that could actually be very good. When do we get to talk about it? I don't think it's a local government issue. It needs to be led by national government. But by golly, before we change our democracy, there needs to be big debate, open debate, and supportive debate for everyone in New Zealand. Thank you.
Okay, I tried to follow everyone's upbringing and where you were from, but I have... Sorry, no drinks, I swear. I have grown up in, when we moved about 15, we moved to Turangi. And it was a great area to further my education. Culturally, for me, it was a huge change coming from the deep, not so dark south of Te Anau. And I've loved all of the involvement that I've had with the Māori people, with the original settlers here of New Zealand. As far as co-governance goes, I'll be the first to put my hand up and say that I haven't read it's a huge topic. It's not one that I'm versed on, and for me to stand up here and to make up some bullshit excuse to keep you guys happy today would be belittling the effort you've made to come along. So I'll actually respectfully decline, apart from the fact to say that I'm very proud to be a Kiwi and also of Māori heritage, which I bring up my white children understanding and speaking. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see this as very dangerous, if I may disagree. I mean, one thing I forgot to mention when I was asked what do I bring to council is diversity and this unique accent that I have. I believe that everyone needs to be involved, and this partnership with the iwi is important. We shouldn't feel threatened. We are all adults, and we can work this out. Whether it was a decision made by local government or a decision already made by the central government and we have to accept it, we can live with it and we can make it work. We shouldn't feel threatened. This is New Zealand. We are all one. We just need to have partnership and we need to work together. Thank you.
I just want to sort of back the bus up a little bit, because I think some of the issues around co-governance are also about democracy. But I just want to remind you that it was only a few years ago that the National Party did throw out Environment Canterbury. The democratically elected Environment Canterbury got replaced by commissioners in Dave Margaret Basley. And we had to live with that because it was seen as the right thing to do. And now I believe co-governance is the right thing to do. I'm all for inclusivity, and I'm also for recognising, as has Ned Fletcher, who was in the paper just in the weekend. So he is a legal historian and a Crown prosecutor, and has written a book about the treaty and he specifically says that there is nothing in our legislation or in any other way that prevents co-governance should we decide it is the best way forward. And I think the decision has been made by many that it is a great way forward. It is a different way forward, but it's one that we can all be enriched by. Thank you.
Well, I'm not convinced it's the right way forward at all, but as a councillor, one of many, I mean, in a small town council, I don't agree with quite a few other things, and if central government decides stuff that we have to roll with, just have to do with the best with what we've got at the time. So that's all I can say. Really.
Yeah, as Christine said, it is done and dusted. There's not much we can do about it. But the problem I have is that we're not sitting down and discussing it between the parties. We've got a lot of tension out there. We've got the commercial boaties down there spent $900,000 on fighting the fees that are going to be charged on the lake. It's passed through government, bang, done. So we've just got to sit down and be one. That's my opinion.
I agree with Christine that we have to work with the framework that we're given as councillors representing everybody else. I do have a concern though that in order for us to communicate partnerships with everybody, we must be able to talk freely and have discussions. And freedom of speech, I think, around the world is being shut down. And you can't, there's an idea now that you can't say something because you might offend somebody. Well, that's just stupid, because I don't know what's going to offend you, neither do you know what's going to offend me. So we should debate stuff reasonably and come to a consensus and then move forward.
Thank you. Well, it becomes difficult, doesn't it? Because we all repeat ourselves. I just agree with what the gentleman on my left here has said. Christine's completely right. We've got to deal with the cards that we're dealt with, whether we like that or not. We've got to find the best way forward. I believe we should all be equal in society and be allowed our opinions and be allowed our free speech. I think what's of greater concern to me is the total prospect of an electoral review that could see us as part of some super council controlled completely outside Taupo. So I think it's important we maintain our rights and our community. Thank you.
I also agree with Christine Rankin. The thing is, it's done and it's dusted. But I believe also that how we co-governance requires building trust and relationship. And we can't do that if we're not going to talk to each other. And I think also there needs to be transparency and integrity in that co-governance space. So, if we don't do it, then we're going to do ourselves damage by not at least coming together and talking it through. So, yeah.
Again, I think you've got to play the cards you dealt. But, I mean, it's not something that's just been invented overnight. We've been dealing with it for years with lakes and rivers and mountains across the country under co-governance arrangements and things of one form or another. I think the big thing that's created the boogeyman of co-governance recently has been the forced way that a lot of stuff has been introduced through, the likes of, the Three Waters reforms and the Health Authority and all that sort of stuff. Those reforms in terms of how we're governing ourselves without consultation and without community feedback and engagement that's what's doing the damage. So it's not so much the co-governance side of things, it's just that complete lack of actual community engagement and consultation that's doing the damage. So I think we've got to play with the cards we've dealt, and we've got to push to have those conversations, whether they're difficult or not. We've got to have them.
So pretty much completely agree with what Christine has actually mentioned. To be honest, I am actually proud that we do have 2 new elected Māori will actually be on our council. My wife is Te Whānau Panui. We try and speak as much Te Reo as we can in our household. I'm 100% for. Again, I know what we are talking about, the cards that have actually been dealt to us. But the thing is it is what it is. Exactly like Christine said. Move on and let's be happy.
Look, I think when we look at co-governance, there is this real sort of adverse reaction to it because of what's being forced down our throats from Wellington with Three Waters. The co-governance levels in that multi-layered 9,000 person organisation that Christine mentioned has really, really done this country harm in misinforming people about what real co-governance is. In Taupō, we have got some amazing opportunities to have relationships where we walk together to enrich our relationships, to do it in collaboration. An example is in Turangi with the mana whakahono. Turangi Tukua own the land. It is their land. Council want to put a playground on that land. Iwi have a right to be at the table and decide what that should look like. It is for our rangatahi, it is for our children, and we all need to work together, especially in a post-treaty settlement space where we don't have to deal with Wellington. We can get on together and do it locally. Thank you.
Yeah, I honestly don't have too much to add. I think we've covered all the bases. And as I touched on earlier when I said that I noticed a real, fragmentation of our community, I meant that. I see division and it's completely unnecessary. We need to focus on our community. We need to focus on working together. We've got some big issues coming. Inflation's going to hit us all, no matter what race, creed, religion we are. So we have to band together, learn to work together with what we've been dealt, with the cards we've been dealt, and move on. Thanks.
I support it, quite simply. As I said in answer to one of the questions before, I read all the papers put before us, and I read in the background, and I read all of the other stuff. I did exactly that on the co-governance issue. I read a lot of the academic papers. I read a lot of stuff coming out of organisations, both government and non-government and universities. And I formed my opinion, having read all the evidence I could find, and I support it then, I support it now. And what worries me and concerns me is the polarising effect issues like this have. I thought as a community in New Zealand we were bigger than that and we'd grown beyond that. Clearly we have a way to grow more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually quite curious. Over the last 20 odd years, there's been about 9 co-management, co-governance arrangements for Taupo District Council with the two wharetāua, Te Arawa River Trust, Rakawa, and no one's raised an eyebrow. You haven't thought about it. To me, it's a healthy arrangement. I'm on a couple of the co-governance committees with Te Arawa River Iwi Trust and Turangi Wastewater Treatment Plant Steering Group to get some positive outcomes. So I see it a positive thing moving forward. As I mentioned before, working together, we're going to get some positive results for the whole district.
I'll be the first to say that my knowledge of Three Waters is probably not as great as the rest of those who've spoken before me, but I do know a lot about iwi and hapu and working with them. And we have to remember that in 1840, Te Tiriti o Waitangi was signed, and that's out of respect for tangata whenua. And so I take my hat off to our mayor and the councillors at the time who a few months ago signed that agreement between Ngāti Turangi Tukua and council to work collaboratively together. And I think it's a good thing. As I say, my knowledge around Three Waters is not as great as others, but that's why we work collaboratively and use our knowledge to the best of our advantage. And I guess when we look at Ngāti Turangi Tukua, the proof will be in the pudding about how that turns out and working positively together. I've been working quite closely with Ngāti Turangi Tukua around employment, and there's great employment opportunities there. So maybe other iwi and hapu are doing things here. I do know in Tauhara, Tauhara iwi are actually got a new project starting up, and they're using the facilities where the old native plant nursery was, and they've got a wonderful project happening that one of us may know about, but it is a wonderful project and creating jobs and opportunities for people here in Taupō. Kia ora.
As a Maori, I am thankful that this council approved the introduction of two wards, a Maori Ward with 2 candidates. I'm a trustee on a marae. I sit on committees with Tū Wharatua Trust and the Settlement Trust. I'm a trustee on a land block. I'm a trustee in the Whānau Trust. And the one thing that we as Maori have been waiting for is an appreciation and a chance to work with locals. Because we all share the same land, we share the same air, we share the same food, share the same kainga. But we don't share governance until now. Thank you.
Part of me is a little scared to go off on a bit of a tangent for fear of running out of time. So with that being said, I'd probably say as unapologetically incredibly proud Māori man that stands before you and a descendant of Ngāti Turangi Tukua, the tupuna who the township was named after, I'm here to tell you there's nothing to be afraid of. Our ultimate goal and responsibility lays with our tamariki. We want the best district for them. That's our ultimate goal. Our intergenerational decisions that we make today and how they're going to impact on our tamariki and our mokopuna. Everyone's saying these are the hands we've been dealt. Trust me when I say you've got a royal flush. Enjoy. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, lucky last again. So I don't see the Māori ward system as co-governance. I guess for me it's just we have a ward for Mankina, for example, and you're more likely to get a representative from that area that understands their views. So I guess for me, the Māori ward is an opportunity to have people with Māori values, or ideally Tū Wharatua values, that can bring that around the table. So I sit on lots of co-governance things. So I'm on the Waikato River Authority. I'm the Deputy Co-Chair for our iwi there. I'm also involved with joint management agreements with Regional Council, which I'm a co-chair on, as well as the one with the Taupō District Council, which still has to get off the ground yet. So for me, co-governance is quite different. At the end of the day, like we said, they're not something scary. You have these committees, you sit around and you work through a lot of the issues that are important to all of us. And just finally, just quickly, because I'm going to get buzzed, I might not get lots of votes from the audience here today, but for me it's still important to be part of the democratic process, to engage with yourselves, be part of these processes, and delighted to still be here. Kia ora.
Okay, we're down to the last 3 questions, and so we're going to run this one. See, I told you you'd be home before midnight. Right, so, I just didn't say which day. Question now coming from Moena Harding. Many parts of our local roading network are in terrible condition, and repair, inverted commas, work doesn't seem to be solving the problems long term. And so a question to a candidate being pulled out of the bucket in a second, that candidate will be asked, why is this the case, and what would they do in council to fix the local roading problems? And the name out of the bucket is Aladdin Al Busandi.
Could you repeat the last part?
I can certainly, sir. The question is, the roads are in terrible condition, repair work doesn't seem to be working. As a candidate elected to council, how would you improve the conditions of our local roads?
Well, firstly, I don't know why the roading is not working, because I am not in council. I really don't know. I agree that a lot of the road works, not just in Taupo, I see that across the region and across the country. Why they're not working, I don't know. This is something. The only thing I can promise you is if I get in, I will investigate that. But if I tell you I have an answer to that, I'll be lying to you. Thank you.
And the second name coming out of the hat was Veronica King. Same question, please, Veronica. Roads are in terrible condition. How would you improve the state of the road? Perhaps possibly little ladders on each side of the potholes or something like that?
Well, actually, to be honest, I have to have the same answer as the previous answer, but I think also it's about being around that table and actually seeing what is available in terms of even local people being able to do that fixing up, because I know sometimes it comes from out of town. And I was speaking to someone the other day and they were talking about them not receiving the ability to do the work here in Taupo, and that was from Downers. And so for me, I would be looking at what is available and who is available for locally available to be able to do that work. Here we go.
Cheers, Veronica. The next question is, how will you work to provide for the well-being of rangatahi, young people in our district? And the lucky person is David Davies.
Okay, I'm a granddad. My kids, none of them live here, but I know what they're like to deal with. In short doses. We have infrastructure already existing that will take care of rangatahi, but we need more. People like this fella here, he knows about it because he works within the Turangi. This fella here knows about him because he works here in Taupo. We have people to do it. We just need more help. As parents, as grandparents, we can't take care of the young fellas that don't know what they're doing. It's help, it's education, it's counselling. I mean, my oldest son fell through the system years ago. He's still falling. What do? That was in Auckland. So you can blame Auckland for that. But here in Taupo, we need more people working in the industry. Thank you.
And one final question from Jane Penton. Last month, District Council approved notification of plan changes, including residential coverage and town centre changes to the district plan. What we build and where we build are two of the most important factors in not only reducing our carbon footprint, but also creating livable, vibrant communities. So the question is, what actions would you take to enable quality intensification and housing within our existing urban centres?
2 seconds while I'm trying to find out if people are here. Is that person here?
Rod Hanson.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think, New Zealand townships are growing exponentially and we've got more than our share. And that's a problem for infrastructure. And it's been mentioned here already tonight by one or two candidates, and I fully support what they've said. Our biggest hurdle in the housing infrastructure as we grow is a thing called the Control Gate Bridge. We've already got a problem down there with congestion. We've got potential of 700 sections to go out in Hohipi Road corner. Do you really want to be commuting across that bridge on Monday morning at 8 o'clock? Not with 700 more sections, it's difficult now. So I think our infrastructure is something that's got to be really strongly focused on. Unfortunately, there's a cost to that as well. And how that's managed, I'm not quite sure at this point in time. But I think in answer to the question, yeah, we've got to get our infrastructure right for our communities. It's been said to me while I've been out getting around the traps, everything seems to be going out here. And when they talk about out here, I'm talking in the airport direction from Taupo in terms of infrastructure, but there's not a lot going out this side. So if you think about the development that's going to go ahead in Acacia Bay, the retirement home village, really great. Going to employ, I believe, 300 people in the building of it. Going to employ 200 people full time once it's constructed. That's without the residents, the visitors, anything else. But again, we've got that one issue down there. So I think that's the number one. So I'll leave it at that, really.
Right, perhaps one other person. So the same question is for one other lucky candidate. What actions would you take to enable quality intensification and housing within our existing urban centres? And it's for Rachel Shepherd.
Well, part of that question that was asked was what we build and how we build it, and that's going to be dictated by some changes to the Resource Management Act, for a start. I believe, but because I'm not in council, so I'm not privy to the discussions and the decisions that have been made recently, but I believe that they have lifted the height restrictions so we can build higher in urban areas. Yeah, it's in consultation. There you go. Anna would have been the better person to answer this question, given that she was part of the decision making. And I understand there's also a bit of social housing on the agenda too. So how we implement that. Green spaces. I'd like to see green spaces and gardening, but that's just me. So I'm sorry I don't have the answer to that question as accurately as you might like. But perhaps a sitting councillor who helped make some of these decisions might be able to offer some insight.
Very good.
Well, that's the final action we have tonight, and I have to thank the candidates for their participation in all the answers and answered them very honestly by the sound of it, and by the rapt looks on everyone's faces out there, I think that they all took it all in and found it very, very interesting. I want to thank you, also the Taupō District Council for making the Great Lakes Centre available to hold this event, and also to Taupō Rotary for organising the evening. Also want to thank the team from Toastmasters for all your help and timing and keeping us on time. Not quite sure where the time disappeared to, but we seem to get ahead of ourselves a bit. And I'd like to, and I'm sure the rest of you will join me in wishing the candidates every success in the elections, and for the voters to choose wisely to give us, the people of Taupō, an effective council. Good evening and a safe trip home. Just before you go, we still have about 25 minutes before we have to vacate the building. If some of you, and I'm sure the candidates would be happy for you to mix and mingle and to talk to them about some of your thoughts, both of tonight or future. But thank you all as citizens of Taupō for coming along.